Hi folks, welcome to our today's KNX News Talk. So my name is Elmar, responsible for technical support and training, and hopefully you will have some interesting insights in the, let's say heading 45 minutes approx. What is new, what we can update to you. Let's start with KNX power supply. So probably you may wonder, so power supply, is it that exciting? That's a real good question. I just want to start with this. You know, these power supplies are parts of our product range since many, many years. Well approved, powerful and reliable. And we decided finally to update some of this, and especially this one. So we added a new one. And you discover here 1280 milliamps in that size, 4 modules of width. Impressive, I think. It was worth to do so because we could achieve the double of the power of this typical size which you get in the market, but in the same housing like here. And we could achieve as well that we could make the efficiency by far better. So we could achieve, our engineers could achieve finally that we do have 80% less of power losses. And imagine. So what is needed, what is required to operate a bus? You need a power supply. And the power supply has to act, has to work 24/7 for years. And imagine if we can achieve now 80% less power losses, what does this affect finally on your energy balance, on middle and on long term, especially when you consider the current energy costs, which we do have. So worth to talk about, I think. A fantastic tool, fantastic power supply. And by the way, you know, we do have here the bus communication, we do have here the aux power. It doesn't matter how you load this. You have not to balance the load. If you apply some load on the bus and you apply some load on the aux output, it doesn't matter. You have not to operate them in a symmetric way. You can use it in an asymmetric way, however. The power supply balances it. So worth to talk about, I think. Unique, the tremendous power of 1280 milliamps. This size, smallest size in the market currently. And so just imagine. So if you have to replace a 640, you want to extend your bus line, so you do not need any additional space to put some other devices aside to have the space for the big size, which are usual, you can get in the market. With our ones, it fits directly in this gap. Another one, another product, finally, a reasonable, interesting product, is thePixa. thePixa, the first optical presence sensor, which we present, which we offer to the market. A highly interesting product, but first of all, let's have a short view into the past. HDS, founded in Switzerland, starts in the early 80s with the legend, with the Eco IR, the first presence detector in the entire world market. They put a lot of strength, a lot of power in the investigation, in the development finally, and what they could achieve was fantastic. And this was the base, finally, the source for all the presence sensors which followed the last many, many years. But HDS is well known as well for their passion for development, and they started in the early 19th to develop the first constant light control supporting presence sensor, which was the compact office DIMM. It was the first one in the market, which could balance the artificial light and the natural daylight in a reasonable good way. And meanwhile, these, let's say, daylight control or constant light control supporting sensors are mandatory if you want to achieve energy efficient light control, and by the way, a comfortable light control. Theben HDS was as well the first, developing in 2010 the first flattest presence sensor in the market. You discover here the height, the thickness of the sensor in the visible, let's say, part, in the appearance of this sensor, which was only 5 millimeters of height. They could achieve a reasonable good sensitivity with a, at that time, unique mirror technique, and this was embedded in this Plano Centro, in this fantastic, powerful presence sensor, another benchmark. And the conclusion, finally, of all these, in 2017, we developed Tironda, small, flat, powerful, and really comfortable in regards of the application of in KNX. Absolutely fantastic product. But what is next? What comes next? And we broke new grounds a few months ago now and developed thePixa. thePixa, the new and the first of its sort. A sensor, an optical sensor, giving us options which PIR-based sensors can't achieve and can't support, finally. Ideal for application in office, schools, corridors, staircases or stairwells, however, loading zones, so or in storage areas, however. So there is a lot of applications what we can use it, and this powerful sensor is really special in regard of the dimension. This is the real one. You discover the thickness of this sensor, you discover the entire height, and you discover this sensor obviously fits perfectly in the flush box, first of all. Secondary, you discover here the sensor supports you with 6 zones. How I can imagine this? I want to give you a reasonable good example. You discover here this grid, which is a drawing here in that area, and you discover here 6 different colors. As an example, 6 zones, working zones or walking areas or walking zones, however you want to name it, however. And this sensor is able to support you with detecting of the reasonable area, which is the green one here, for instance. Yeah, so that means if someone comes to work, took place here in his working area, starts working, however, all the lights, all the working areas around are not illuminated, but his single working area is. So our next colleague is popping up in the office, is discovered, and then in this area finally the light starts to switch on, to control, to do daylight control or constant light control, whatever, achieving a reasonable good, let's say, air quality by counting the people, giving the reasonable commands to the airing system or air exchange systems, for instance. And you can imagine now there are another 4 of these zones which you can operate totally independent. Smart, isn't it? Then you can put some, let's say, blocking zones. For which purpose? So if, for instance, in one of these areas here, you do have some areas which have not to be included in the solution. So that means you have some hinderly things, or just as an example, you have a TV on the wall, and such kind of optical sensors are discovering movement as well in regards of, let's say, TVs or projectors. Yeah. So that means to avoid that if the TV is on, giving you some daily news or whatever, or presentation. And this one is detected by a present sensor, by the thePixa. These can create, let's say, a trigger. So the light turns on or ventilation starts, whatever. But it's just a TV on the wall. And for that purpose, you can put in this specific area a so-called blocking zone. Each zone offers you one blocking zone. So you can really design and decide wherever and whatever you want to cut out or to block, however. This gives you a lot of freedom. Well, we can distinguish as well between motion, so that means walking, yeah, and presence. Presence means you are just located on your table, reading some, working on a PC, on a mobile, whatever. And we can distinguish between these two different ways of move yourself. We can count people, so how many people are in a zone or in a certain amount of zones, for instance. We can give this value as a byte value to the system, to KNX. You can visualize if you want. But if you have 2 or 3 of these kind of sensors, you can link them together. So that means you can give the counted amount of people here to the next sensor, to the next sensor. You can add it. And then at the end of the day, you get the total amount of people walking down this corridor or this entrance hall or whatever. Okay, sounds interesting, huh? Something which is totally new, brand new, which breaks new ground totally. What is the advantage? For this purpose, definitively, you need less sensors, because one of these sensors, of these fantastic sensors, is giving you 6 zones which you can really define and specify however you like and you need. Okay? Less technique is visible on the ceiling due to this really tiny little appearance, yeah, of this sensor, finally. And in regards of, how can I say, the light calibration, this is something which is really special and really amazing. So you have really the option for each of these detecting zones, you can do an individual light calibration. So you put just your mobile on the reasonable area, you read what is there, displayed on your mobile, because in the mobile you have a brightness sensor in the app, and then you just confirm, okay, this is exactly the value which is real on the table or on this specific area, and you press OK and send it to the sensor, and this specific area here is calibrated. And so you can do zone by zone the calibration of the light. Or you take an external gauge, a calibrated gauge, however, measure the light, you read what is the current value on the table, and you type in the app exactly that value, press OK, send it towards the sensor, and the deal is done. So how easy it is. Look at this. Huh? So, well, yeah, but now the specific things. Imagine, so you have this open space office, and you are now asked for, so can we do a certain, let's say, partition control or control of these particularly areas here. So for instance, just if this person here is in the office, the other colleagues probably are in home office or whatever, or in business trip. So can we do control separately each of these working zones or working areas? Yes, we can. With PIR-based sensors, it becomes difficult, because then you need shields or covers which you have to put on the lenses, and this you have in general to cut with a scissor or so to adapt to the reasonable needs finally. What we can do with thePixa, I will share some details with you. For that purpose, we did a small example in the conference center in Haigerloch, in the castle of Haigerloch. Here on top you will see a DALI light system, and you discover probably somewhere the thePixa. And these 4 working areas, 1, 2, 3, and the other one in the corner. So these are separated working zones. And now we start. So a person is entering the room and crossing the zone. You discover these lights here switch on. Now he crosses exactly the next zone to this working area. The light turns on here as well, but not the next further down. You discover here probably this zone here, because I just crossed for a short moment, is starting immediately to dim down, to reduce the power consumption, the energy consumption, and switches off after a short moment. So for this example, we kept it really short, so this delay time finally. Yeah, well, and when it turns off, so then another colleague, exactly, now it switches off. Now another colleague is entering that area, coming a little bit late to the office, later to the office. You see, light turns on, here the light is on, then he crosses now the next working zone, and now finally he reaches his working area, his working space down there in the edge. And yeah, deal is done. You discover here and there where it was just passing through, so the light starts immediately to reduce the brightness, to dim down. That's it. Yeah. So you can achieve finally that you can really do the zoning. So wherever a person is walking and working finally, so then you get the reasonable light in that areas, in that spaces where you just cross, so you can switch off the light earliest. Yeah. So whatever is required. You see how easy it is. And just by positioning with the Theben app. In this, let's say, specific sense, I want to recommend, we do have here a XX large webinar, and this you find on our webpage, and there you get more deeper details. We show there, so how you have to set up the app, what you can do, how you calibrate lights, and. So it's really worth to have a look inside. Another example is finally here. You discover here, so the setup of these chairs, of this working area is different now. So we are expecting a meeting, so we did the modification in the arrangement, and we opened, in this case, the app and put 2 of these zones together, one zone upon the other. And you see, or you will discover, so what will happen now. So again, so the first is joining the meeting. You see, the light turns on, but now watch, look there, what happens. So now we do have 1 light fitting. So 2 sets of 2 lights are switching on immediately together, because now we are expecting a bigger gathering and we want to have a better illumination and a totally different way to be detected. Okay, you see how easy it is finally, and this just by modification of the zones. Great, you can't do this and you can't achieve this finally with a PIR-based sensor, no way. Yeah, and by the way, so just mentioned, we can count people dynamically, so when you're walking along the corridor or whatever, and statically. So that means what I'm currently doing here, so just in front of the camera, giving you some impressions and ideas, what to do and what you can achieve with the thePixa, or the mix of dynamic and static, so that you have the real overview what was about in the last couple of minutes, hours, whatever. You can set a time frame, so in which time frame you want to count people, and then you get a reasonable, let's say, result. And you have an overview, for instance, if you want to achieve that your cleaning stuff is just caring about that areas where you have a high frequented area, for instance. You got me? This is one of the good, let's say, applications what you can achieve. And with this counting, you can achieve another, let's say, rather interesting application, which is ventilation or airing. So that means HVAC. If you don't have in a working zone or in a meeting room, however. Qualitative-wise, excellent CO2 sensor, which you do have, which is our Amoon 716. You don't have, but you want to control the air quality inside of the room, so you can count people. And depending on how many people are in the room, so you can increase the fan speed or the speed of air exchange according to the people in the room. Okay, you got me? Another option. And this is easy to customize. You get in total the number of people, if you want, as a byte value, and you can use it, for instance, to set up a threshold, however you like it. You remember 2 slides before, so the arrangement of the tables, and here you get first time now a certain impression, so how you have to imagine this zoning, how does it work, however. Basically, to avoid any misunderstandings, we don't need any pictures to detect people. It is an optical sensor, sure, a CCD semiconductor, but it's not, in this case, a camera taking any kind of pictures. It is a pixel-based sensor. So that means whenever a person is moving underneath the sensor and a pixel moves his position or changes his position, then we create or can create the reasonable function. When we start to do the zoning, like here, and someone is moving in one of these zones, so this means finally the pixel changes from one point to another one, so just as an example, from here to here, and this creates the reasonable signal, triggering, however. Well, but why you discover here a kind of an image or a kind of a picture in the background? This is just in the event if you want to customize or to position your zones precise. What is needed? You discover here this small icon, this camera icon here. So with this camera icon, you can take a kind of an image of the reality underneath this fantastic sensor. And then you see here, as an example, here is a table, here is another table, here is obviously a person, it was me, in order to prepare this webinar. And you discover the resolution is such rough that you can't discover if it's man, woman, cat, dog, whatever. It's just a rough idea what is underneath. But for you, if you have to position the zones in a reasonable good way, so probably it's a kind of a helping hand to give you orientation. If you don't want to, so take a piece of white paper, put it somewhere where your table, for instance, has to be placed later on, start the scan, and then you will have, for instance, this piece of paper as a white shining area, and then you know exactly, okay, here upon I have to put my, let's say, zone. That's just an idea, and this is a fantastic way to do so. And you discover here, so we do have here, and each of these edges or corners, we do have here these white kind of fingers. If you take one, so you can move it horizontally, vertically, however, you can size it, and due to that, so you can configure and you can customize however you like it. If you have done so, like here for instance, you will get finally, if you open later on, let's say the detailed settings or the settings for the specialist, so then you can really calibrate how is the light condition here, how is the light condition here, here and here totally separately. PIR-based sensors are fantastic, absolutely reliable during the last 30-40 years, however, but this is really breaking new grounds, gives you definitively new options in presence detection. Switching, dimming, constant light control, standby function to save energy, or aura function, for instance, everything is possible. And again, so I want warmly to recommend watch our specific XX large video to the thePixa. This gives you more insights, more ideas, and more hints what you can do, what you can achieve with this fantastic sensor. Yeah, let's have a look to another interesting new product, which is CHEOPS. Probably you know the name, have heard the name, however. CHEOPS is a valve and a controller on its own. So that means we do have here the new one, the S version, which is valve and RTR, room temperature controller, all in one. In the past, or till now, however, we do have here a separate valve, which requires finally, or which has required, a reasonable RTR, room temperature controller, for, let's say, the reasonable temperature command or position command. And we do have here CHEOPS control, and here easily you discover, okay, there seems to be some different. We do have here two buttons, and these two push buttons enable you to rise or to lower the temperature. So that means this fantastic sensor, CHEOPS control, was able to measure the temperature, to control the temperature, and to position the valve in a reasonable, fantastic way. Absolutely reliable. Meanwhile, more than 10 years old. Set benchmarks, definitively, especially when it comes to the actuating force. So at that time, when we developed and when we launched these products into the market, we had the highest force, the highest actuating force in the entire KNX market till now. But now with the redesign, we added some additional values. What does it mean? So we have really risen the actuating force up to 220 Newton meters, which is absolutely fantastic. Again, a benchmark. And why we need such? Specifically, when it comes to control, let's say, huge valves in industrial buildings, in big industry plants and so on. So then the CHEOPS drive or CHEOPS control was in some few cases limited. But by the way, all the others in the market couldn't achieve neither these fantastic values of 120 Newton meters. And due to that, we decided, okay, to increase, to do a redevelopment, to achieve a further on higher actuating force to support exactly this application in industrial purposes. We cared about the audible noise, so we kept the noise level down below 35 decibel, which is rather silent. Yeah, I think this is worth to remark. And we kept as well two simple but really efficient functions, which are two binary inputs, which you may use, for instance, for Windows contact. So if someone insists to do a natural ventilation to flip the window, for instance, you can put the sensor or the contact, the window contact, directly next to the reasonable CHEOPS, and the CHEOPS S supports this function as well. We have integrated as well a little logic, because here and there we discovered there is a need, there is a demand for. And in regards of the application, I want to share a little bit with you. So we can, if you like, activate these LEDs on the left-hand side, so which gives you the position, for instance, of the valve. Or if you have set this valve as a controller, so then you can read from that setting here, so how is the temperature roughly. Yeah. In general, when I talk about roughly, in general, so we share the measured temperature as well on the bus. So if you want to use visualization or whatnot, so then you can read in real characters, so how is the current temperature in the room. If you dislike these LEDs, deactivate this. Why not? You discover some which is here, so time and date format. I come later on this, or back on this. Important thing I think is, so in regards of the sensor. The sensor is inbuilt, you had heard right, exactly. And it works fantastic since more than 10 years. Absolutely reliable, and with our, let's say, software which we are using, we can manage it. That this value is installed directly on the radiators, and the radiators, you know, is giving you extreme heat source finally, and we can compensate this in a reasonable good way. The reasonable settings, so how is the, let's say, yeah, the detection and the value when people are present, when we do have standby, when we do have frost, whatever, this you can achieve, this you can preset in the background. And now we come back on this, you see the object tree. So why we need the time, so we have internally a kind of valve protection, which you can, if you like, daily be activated. So that means that the valve doesn't get stuck during the summer season, because there is permanently water in the tubes, and after a couple of years, so probably the valve gets stuck. And due to this operation, every day slightly move 1 or 2 moves a day, so then we can avoid that. Pretty simple. Or if you need more physical pressure on the pipes, on the tube, so you can do it however you like it. We added here specifically an adapter. So this you find finally. This is the sensor and this controller, this valve in real. And this is the adapter finally, which is a part of delivery. And with these 2 simple plastic tools, we can achieve that this valve here fits to almost 80% of the valves which are in the market existing. Inboxed, and what is inboxed as well, you will definitively discover some new in our boxes. You discover here this security card, this security information. And why you do so? You do so because this CHEOPS valve is supporting KNX Data Secure, like almost all our new products. I think it's good to know. Well, let's go a step forward in terms of, yeah, KNX actuators. And here you can imagine, okay, so here pops up some color, and that's exactly now our main content. So we talk about a DALI 4-fold actuator. What is he about? What does it mean? We do have finally a simple in brackets, 4-fold actuator supporting DALI 2 communication. Each of these channels, yeah, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, you can apply up to 30 DALI switchgears or EVGs, however, and you can control individually LED lights. Unrespectively, if we are talking about LED monochromes, LED colored light, or tunable white, or if you have fluorescence, doesn't matter. You can just control everything, but focused on each channel. So we talk about broadcast communication. It's absolutely easy and fantastic easy to do the commissioning. Lamp exchange is rather easy to do. You have not to do any additional commissioning later on to add the new light or the new ballast, however, in the group. No, because the group is the channel. So that means per channel you can here control RGB lights, you can here control tunable white, you can here control monochrome lights, whatever. Mix will work on off, yes, but you can't give them a reasonable, let's say, scenario or whatever. This is not possible. All these channels are following or supporting the data point 8 type, so which supports exactly these new, let's say, future-proofed LED communication based on DALI. And this controller supports as well, you discover here, DALI Data Secure and KNX Data Secure, sure. So how you have to imagine, finally from the wiring side, on one hand, you discover here, you have here the KNX side, where sensors, push buttons or whatever are linked to. And on the other side, here, this is the output, channel 1 for instance. This supports, could be for instance, a relay, a DALI relay, and supports the reasonable switch gears. However, depends on color, monochrome, tunable white, whatever, channel by channel. And this is easy to set up. With this data type 8, we support temperature control, which is 2 byte, which support RGB, 3 byte, or RGBW, 6 byte. You can have one control communication object, 6 byte. You can separate the color channels as well. So separate red, separate green, separate blue, separate white. Can do as well, your choice. It's a matter of the application settings, however. Well, let's go ahead. So that means it wasn't easier in the past to do so. You use a fantastic push button, a powerful push button, which is our Ion 102, 2-fold, 4-fold, or 8-fold. And all these push buttons, Ion, are supporting a fantastic color control or LED light control. And these two sets here matches perfectly together. It was never been easier. And what we can achieve as well is finally, probably you discovered, this 4-fold switching actuator, DALI based, supports as well DALI relay if required. Yeah, so it's a part of this channel, let's say. Again, we talk about 30 devices, one channel. Yeah, well, you decide in the application settings if you want to have color temperature, like here. You have RGB control, RGW, whatever. You can here, let's say, choose with a color picker what is your favorite color, which you want to have in channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, and further on. You can do dimming, whatever. You see the reasonable, let's say, control commands here. Can have soft dimming, slightly fading in the reasonable color. And you can adjust or set finally the reasonable, let's say, control commands, control curves, for instance, however you like it. Added with the added value of the hour meter finally for any kind of, let's say, replacement or maintenance, whatever. You see, remarkable, fantastic product, which you should consider. Yeah, mix actuators. Another really interesting part. I assume you know our actuators, our mix actuators. We have a huge amount of actuators in our product range. And hoping that you know that our actuators are absolutely fantastic when it comes to dimming of LEDs or switching of LEDs, however. What is the special and why I highlight this today as news? So this is the development 10 years ago. This was the basic unit. These are the extension units. Okay? This was the idea. You add whatever you need with the resolution finally, or with the result that you can room-orientated manage the setup of these actuators. The reasonable master, the reasonable extensions, you mix it however you need it. Cost efficient because the master just has the brain with these BCU, which you can remove finally. The extensions just follow the commands which coming from the basic unit. And now comes this fantastic setup, because you discover here we can just remove this BCU from the front. I will show you here in the original setup. So you discover here basic unit, extension, extension. You discover here is a connector between the reasonable basic and extension modules. I just take here this PCU out. This PCU is finally the intelligence, carrying the physical address, the group addresses and whatnot. And now I replace this, and you discover here this symbol, this icon, which is giving you the impression. So now we can set up these actuators to secure. You will discover when you unbox this actuator, beginning on March this year, that you will get this PCU directly delivered, which is a part of the delivery, and you will definitively get this kind of security card with the FDSK code, which you need finally to operate these actuators in secure mode, data secure mode. You have here on the side, you have the reasonable QR code, and you have with a sticker, and you do have here on this safety card the reasonable sticker as well. So this is important to set up, to integrate these actuators in a secure system. What does it mean? It means finally, if you have chosen in the past our mix actuators, now it's easy to set up, easy to upgrade to secure communication. You need just this PCU, you need the new application, which is supporting secure, which is certified by the KNX, and you can upgrade your hardware in a short, reasonable time. I think impressive. And this was exactly what we have done 10 years before, future-proofed, forward-orientated. And now you have some results. So it doesn't mean now, so if you have to replace the PCU on an existing system, you can take the new one, take it, replace for instance the old one, take the new one, download the current application, system is running, doesn't affect negative the basic unit, the extension units and so on. If you want to go secure, then you need the new PCU, then you need to use the new application in the ETS, which is giving you the idea you discover here. Here is Mix 2 Secure displayed, and this means finally this you need to use now, this application, and this application supports finally data secure communication. I think remarkable, and for you absolutely of advantage. Don't lose the FDSK code, because without FDSK code it becomes difficult if you have to modify some, otherwise you aren't authorized to do modifications. Okay, that's the reason why. Yeah, well, there is a separate number, separate spare parts in the event of you need that. So that means mix, future-proofed in terms of flexible in the adaptation. You know, it is absolutely benchmark in regards of switching power or dimming power, and now Theben has actuators supporting data secure. Yeah, last but not least, we talk about the wall and or flush-mounted motion detector and presence detector, which is, let's say, design-proofed. Here the theMura KNX, we get a reasonable design award for this fantastic sensor. What you discover here a nice appearance. You discover probably here is a push button, and this push button finally, probably I can share it with you here. So, well, we do have here this sensor. Here is the push button where you can override if you like. You can replace this cover and take another cover, for instance, of another manufacturer, that it fits finally in the set design. What you discover here is finally you do have additionally 2 binary inputs, which are directly linked to the appliance. And yeah, in regards of the application, you can set these binary inputs as switching commands, a dimming command, can call up scene, can group some functions, whatever. There is internal, in this fantastic sensor, there is a temperature probe, which gives you the reasonable, let's say, temperature of this area. And the coverage of the detecting area is 14 by 17 meter, which is enormous, which is absolutely enormous and remarkable, I think. And what you discover here is finally, you discover here as well, hey, here is an orientation light, which you can activate or deactivate, however you like it. But this one you can just activate if you have chosen the presence sensor. The motion detector or motion sensor does not support this orientation light. Presence sensors, yes. Automatical adaptation finally to the brightness around. You can set up, so you can adapt this intensity of the light, of this orientation light, or you can deactivate, whatever. Rather flexible, rather simple. There are different, let's say, frame sets that fit finally into other, let's say, systems like here, like here, like here, like here. And so that affects finally that our sensor fit in existing push-button designs. In regards of, let's say, the app communication, we can communicate or we can set up this fantastic sensor with the Theben app. So you can do the, let's say, fine-tuning of the sensor with this fantastic app. So it gives you reasonable, good options either to do the setup, the basic setups from the ETS side, and the fine-tuning in regards of, let's say, brightness, thresholds, and so on. This you can do finally directly with the app, if you like. Yeah, well, and last but not least, just a few less words to, let's say, the latest update of our flush-mounted actuators, RF, talking Data Secure, you see here, you discover. So all the new products finally, which we are launching now in KNX, are supporting Data Secure. So what is the difference finally? So just a few less differences. The appearance, you discover here, slightly difference from here to here, that's right. You discover that now, from beginning of this year, we do have here the security card, security information, with a reasonable FDSK code, which fits finally to this product. And the dimensions have slightly become bigger because we have implemented some more, let's say, technique in regards of the radiation of the RF signal. And we have increased this tremendously, almost 100%. So that means we have a fantastic reception of this RF signal finally. From the application settings, I think we can shorten it a little bit. So we have the typical functions, switching, dimming, heating control, and can use, for instance, external binary inputs. So that means we do have here, so just if I unbox here, for instance, our original new actuator, you find here security card with a reasonable FDSK code. You find here a binary input cable, yeah, and here you discover on that side we do have here the interface. You just plug it in, and wrong side. So and then you do have here two binary inputs. Here you apply 230 volt, and that's it. And these fantastic RF sensors are absolutely powerful in the application and as well in the reception of the RF communication in KNX. All of these actuators, irrespectively if we talk about heating, temperature control, if we talk about dimming, if we talk about shutters and blinds, however, even our, how can I say, the media coupler here, all these applications on all these products are able to support you as repeater function. So that means to fresh up the communication if required. It's worth to visit our webinars, which are heading in the next few days. Always worth to share time with us, and hopefully it was interesting for you, these 45 minutes news from Theben. See you next time.